This is Mujib from North Country Kettlebells. Today I'm going to be talking about the Kettlebell Suitcase Deadlift and a few of the components that go into doing safe and effective Kettlebell Suitcase Deadlifts. Now, the Kettlebell Suitcase Deadlift is a wonderful movement for practicing core engagement as well as training in all of the safe and proper alignment that goes into picking anything heavy up off the ground. The Kettlebell Suitcase Deadlift, like any other deadlift variation, is going to be primarily a hip hinge. For this variation, I'm also going to be flexing my knees, and I just basically want to think about it as if the knees are following the hips, but the hips are the primary mover for this movement. As with most of the other deadlift variations, I'm also going to be keeping my chest up. A nice way to think about it is that if I have something written across my chest, then I want somebody across from me to still be able to read that thing that's written across my chest. So the hips are going to hinge, the knees are going to flex, but at the same time the chest is going to stay up and the eyes are going to stay up. Now, with every other kettlebell movement that we do, I'm also going to be thinking about my abdominal engagement and my glute engagement, but with the deadlift, some of those things are going to be taken care of based on the structure that I'm maintaining. So if I think that the hips are going to hinge and the glutes are going to go back, then I want to imagine that if I was going to draw lines from my kneecaps down to the ground, my feet are going to be underneath my kneecaps. With this specific style of suitcase deadlift, I want to think about it as I'm setting the kettlebells up on the outsides of my body. If there was a bar connecting the kettlebells, then that bar would be directly up against my shins. Again, we want to think about the full body engaging as we're doing this lift. As for my arms, I'm not going to be flexing my arms at all. I'm actually going to keep my arms fully extended. So as I go down, it's going to be my torso maintaining its structure. My hands are essentially just hooking around the handles, and it's my hips that are powering this entire movement as I come back up. I want to think that my spine is going to stay rigid, meaning that as I stand up, I don't want those kettlebells to pull my shoulders forward. I want to keep my chest up the entire time. I'm also not going to be contracting my biceps to flex my elbows. Instead, again, I'm going to keep my arms at full extension the entire time. Both on the way up and down, I want to think about my hips powering that movement. My torso is staying rigid. Again, my chest is staying up. I'm not letting my shoulders bend or my head bend forward. And that's going to apply both on the way up and the way down. On the way up, I want to make sure that at the top of my movement, I'm coming to a nice full hip extension. On the way down, I want to actually tap the ground with the kettlebells each time, if not put them completely back onto the ground. Although I'm not going to disengage when they get back to the ground, I do want to think that the ground is going to allow me a consistent movement. So if the kettlebells reach the ground each time, especially if they're reaching simultaneously each time, then I know that my deadlift is going to the same place each time and that my range of motion is remaining consistent throughout my set. Now, there are multiple variations of this style of suitcase deadlift. I could do 5 reps on one side and then switch to the other side and do 5 reps on the other side, or I can alternate kettlebells each repetition. If I am just picking up one kettlebell at a time for this style of suitcase deadlift, every time that I pick up that kettlebell on the right side, I want my hand to reach the kettlebell on the left side at the same time. So that's just going to ensure that my torso is level. If I'm reaching for both kettlebells, but my right side reaches while my left side is up, then you can just imagine that the body is actually tilted like this. So if I keep my shoulders totally level, then both hands should reach both kettlebells simultaneously. And as I lift that kettlebell up, I'm making sure that my counterbalance and engagement on my non-working side is working properly, and that my body isn't compensating for the fact that I only have the kettlebell in one hand. This is a great way to kind of practice that counterbalance and counter engagement. If I just have the kettlebell on one side, I'm essentially teaching my opposite side that it's supposed to be working the entire time that I'm lifting. As with the rest of our kettlebell movements, especially in the beginning, we're going to keep the rep counts fairly low. So we want to think simple rep counts, 1 to 5 reps on each side, or if I'm doing the doubles, again, 1 to 5 reps of picking up both at the same time. I'll do anywhere from 3 to 5 sets of that movement per workout, but the whole goal is, again, just to get better at the movement, to practice consistency of the movement, and to let that lead to the strength progression, not to wear the body out trying to do too many of them, and then to have this movement actually become detrimental. Try out the Kettlebell Suitcase Deadlift and all the variations that come with it. Let me know how you feel about that. And as always, our main focus when doing these kettlebell lifts is safety and effectiveness, especially when we're talking about things like suitcase deadlifts or any other deadlift variation. This is Mujib from North Country Kettlebells talking about the Kettlebell Suitcase Deadlift.